There's been a vote just gavelled in that does not avert a partial government shutdown, with the deadline on that coming up tomorrow night. You heard the president just minutes ago suggest that he hopes that a shutdown is avoided. A lot of eyes had been on this vote to see if perhaps there was some sort of deal that Democrats and Republicans could come to. It appears that's not the case. But let's bring in our chief congressional correspondent, Ryan Nobles, who's going to break this down for us. And Ryan, there had been maybe early this morning some indication that perhaps there would be a compromise to avoid a shutdown. It looks like, at least right now, that didn't move forward.
Yeah, I think they're still talking, Hallie, and from what I'm told, they're still moving in the direction of coming up with some sort of a deal before this is all said and done. But I think more than anything, the Majority Leader John Thune wanted to put this package on the table to at least get a head count as to where folks are in terms of these negotiations. Now, every single Democrat voted no, but what was interesting was that there was a collection of Republicans that also voted no, and that was a bit of a surprise. And our team is now spread out around the chamber to try and get some sense of exactly why these Republicans voted no. I don't think there's a uniform reason behind it, but it could mean that these Republicans want to be a part of whatever deal is being hatched between the White House and Senate Democrats before they then offer up their yes vote on these long-term appropriations bills. And so Ryan, the deal. Go ahead, Hallie.
Just before we get too far down into that track, I just want to remind people, if you can help us here, why there is this threat of a partial government shutdown in the first place. It has to do with the president's immigration operations in Minneapolis, with Democrats after the shooting and killing of a 37-year-old Minneapolis man, Alex Preddy, on Saturday, suggesting they did not want to fund the Department of Homeland Security as part of this package, and that's where this threat originated.
Yeah, that's right, Hallie. A week ago at this time, it looked as though we were on a glide path to a long-term government funding package, that the remaining 6 appropriations bills that had yet to be passed would sail through the Senate. They passed the House relatively easily, but then the shooting and killing of Alex Preddy changed that conversation quite a bit because the Department of Homeland Security is part of that package. What's making this process difficult is that Democrats have said that they have no problem voting yes on 5 of the 6 appropriations bills, which includes funding for the Department of Transportation, for the IRS, for the Pentagon. But it's that Department of Homeland Security budget that they want to have more of a conversation about. And they've asked for a very specific set of reforms in the wake of the violence that we've seen pop up in Minnesota. Initially, Republicans were resistant to that. They said it was an all or nothing proposition. You either vote for everything or you vote for nothing. And this is complicating because they have to have a certain number of Democratic votes to get over that 60-vote threshold in order to guarantee government funding is taken care of throughout the rest of the fiscal year. That led to conversations between the White House and Senate Democrats, and they are making progress. The White House appears to be open to this conversation. They seem to recognize how the situation in Minneapolis has gotten a bit out of control, and clearly by the work that the administration is doing, sending Tom Homan there, pulling ICE forces out of both Minneapolis and Maine, there's a recognition that they need some sort of course correction here. The question is, will they meet Democrat demands here? They have 3 specific goals that they're looking for. They want to see a uniform code of conduct that goes up and down all of these different immigration enforcement agencies. They want to end these enhanced mass patrols that are happening in American cities across the country. And they also want to see every ICE agent have a body cam on them, to have clearly identified markers demonstrating that they are part of that law enforcement agency and that they can't wear masks. The White House seems open to these conversations. So the path forward on this, Hallie, would be that they would separate the bills, allow a vote on the 5 bills, which everyone agrees about, pass a short-term spending bill, a continuing resolution, as it's called, on just the Homeland Security package, and then that would give them time to negotiate those reforms. So obviously, that's what they want to do. They obviously have not gotten over the finish line from that respect, because they put the package up as it was originally constituted and it failed. So there's going to be conversations that have to happen between now and midnight on Friday. And so the risk of a government shutdown is still a very real threat at this point.
I should note that we've been watching here as we look at the president's cabinet meeting. We're monitoring that on the left side of the screen. On the right, Republican Senator Thom Tillis. And in the last couple of minutes, he's been going in on Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. He has already called on her to step down. He is now slamming her preparedness for things like storms, the one that is expected this weekend in the Carolinas, FEMA, et cetera, which, Ryan, I think speaks to some of the frustration, at least from him, from maybe one other Republican, Lisa Murkowski, on the way that Homeland Security has functioned even beyond immigration. But, Ryan, before we let you go to run around in the hallways, because I know you got to chase some senators, at what point do you think we will have a sense, Ryan, as to whether or not this deal is going to move closer to the finish line?
There's really no way to tell definitively, Hallie. It could come together in the next 2 hours. It may take until 10 o'clock a Friday night before they come up with some sort of deal. But I do think it's important to keep in mind that if they change this package in any way, shape, or form, the House will then need to approve it as well. The House isn't even back here in Washington until next week. So it seems very likely that there will at least be some short-term shutdown, partial government shutdown, as a result of this back and forth between the White House and Congress.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.